In the news tonight, financial assistance being provided by government for people with several types of disabilities. More legal protection for youngsters under the age of 16 through the Sexual Offences Bill. Barbadians warned not to take lightning storms lightly. And in sports, Barbados Trident set to earn promotion in CONCACAF with victory tomorrow over U.S. Virgin Islands.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. Thank you so much for tuning in. In our top story tonight, in an unprecedented move, much needed financial assistance is being provided by government for people with several types of disabilities. They now qualify for a non-contributory pension. Labour Minister Colin Jordan made the announcement, adding that civil society played an instrumental role in this development. Anesta Henry has that report.
From this month, non-contributory pensions will be paid to Barbadians living with several disabilities. Minister of Labour, Social Security and Third Sector Colin Jordan makes the announcement while addressing the opening of the regional policy meeting.
I must remind us that from this month, October, non-contributory pensions will be paid not only to persons who are blind, deaf and mute, but to persons with advanced multiple sclerosis, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and autism. Civil society organizations were among those who lobbied for this financial support.
Minister Jordan adds the government is also working on reviewing the national minimum wage.
As the Prime Minister announced in her budget presentation in March, we are also going to be indexing it so that the purchasing power of those who earn at the lower levels of our work environment, that purchasing power is maintained at a level, at least at a level, where workers are able to live and eat. And that is important.
The regional policy meeting, organized by the Caribbean Policy Development Center, is funded by the Open Society Foundations and the European Development Fund. It involves key regional policymakers, advocates, and international experts charting a new course for governance, development, and resilience in the region to improve the lives of Caribbean people. Minister Jordan stresses that civil society is critical to national and regional development.
We have a cabinet paper and we intend to have it before cabinet within the next month and a half, I would say, on creating a legislative framework to accelerate the work of building a third sector that is able to fully realize its potential to be effective partners in a human-centered development model.
Officer in charge at the Caribbean Policy Development Center, Richard Jones, says the meeting is important as Caribbean nations face a convergence of complex challenges that threaten to derail sustainable development and the well-being of their citizens.
As key civil society actors, we must engage in dialogue aiming to advance development priorities for our region. While our role in development is often undervalued, we are a crucial component in the creation of transformative policies, particularly as existing governance and political systems are now more often characterized by growing apathy and distrust. It is incumbent upon us to ensure that our voices are heard and that our sector is organized to have a real and lasting impact on the lives of the vulnerable groups we serve and represent.
The meeting concludes on Thursday. Minister Jordan explains the non-contributory pension for people with disabilities will be paid with funds from government and not from the NIS, which will only be the distributing agency. Anesta Henry, CBC News.
And in more news from the Labour Minister, we are hearing that the Employment Rights Tribunal will be moving to a full-time operation by year-end. He says the decision was made following consultation with key stakeholders.
I expect that the Employment Rights Tribunal, that tribunal set up by the Employment Rights Act, will be able to move to a full-time tribunal before the end of this calendar year. We have consulted with our social partners and we have engaged the International Labour Organization, and a draft cabinet paper will be going to cabinet later this month.
Amendments to the Sexual Offences Bill restore the legal protection afforded to people under the age of 16. That's according to Attorney General Dale Marshall, who led off debate on the bill in the lower house. He says the language pertaining to serious indecency was not satisfactory and there were other areas that needed to be clarified and addressed. Mr. Marshall says government has also introduced in the bill the definition of a minor to clarify the issue of age.
When we speak of minor, a minor in this bill, we are not speaking of a person 18 and under. We're speaking of a person 16 and under. This is not an attempt to change the definition section in other parts of the law. So for those people who may not be within immediate hearing, who may find themselves a little bit confused, the law says that when you define a term in an act, it means what it says in that act.
Mr. Marshall says the amendments touch on the issue of rape, recognizing it can take place in many ways. It also takes into consideration people with medical disorders and physical disabilities pertaining to consent. The Attorney General says the country must be prepared to call out such acts, as he says the legislation also addresses for the first time grooming.
We don't like to talk about it. We have difficult decisions, difficult discussions, I should say. People who are in loco parentis, you know well the Latin term, Mr. Speaker, and then you find that somehow or another a little touching of a leg, and then it advances beyond that. You have people who say, meet me in tongue, and then it advances beyond that. We don't like to talk about these things because they represent a nasty and unpleasant underbelly of a society. Not just the Barbadian society, these things happen all over the world. But Barbadians get a little embarrassed to talk about these things.
Strong support tonight for the amendments to the Sexual Offences Bill. It's coming from MP for St. George North and General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Tony Moore. She says they're rooted in the principle of consent. Ms. Moore is particularly supportive of Section 2.5 and 2.6, where one spouse commits the offence of rape by having intercourse with the other without consent.
I believe that this is something that should have been before us and afforded for a long time. So often we will hear one spouse making a comment, trying not to specify a particular gender. That is mine. I control that. As if a person, the other person is chattel, or as if they own or can command the actions of another person. I believe it becomes very worrisome at times when we have to see how that perception of ownership leads to situations that you, Mr. Speaker, may have to treat to in the law courts.
Opposition leader Ralph Thorne queried the neutralization of the language in the amendments to the Sexual Offences Bill, seeking clarity on whether it extends to same-sex unions.
And that is not an expression of homophobia. That is to give absolute, that meets the duty of this Parliament to give absolute clarity to the people of this country that this legislation, this amendment, when it says spouse and spouse, when it disguises, when it conceals, when it obscures the sex of the parties, that it does not extend to same-sex unions.
Mr. Thorne called on government to genuinely act to protect Barbadian children from events that adversely influence what is right and wrong. He further welcomed efforts to address those who abuse technology to lure children. The opposition leader also weighed in on the removal of corroboration from the legislation.
The abolition of that principle does cause me some discomfort. Since a trial, there must be some, what I would describe as evidential equality during the course of a trial. Everybody must have a fair chance. The victim has her rights, and she must be given a fair chance to express herself evidentially. In other words, to give her testimony. And she must be given the right and the opportunity not only to be heard, but to be believed. But so also must the accused.
Member of Parliament for St. Philip North, Dr. Sonia Brown, is seeking clarification on the corroboration aspect of the amendments to the bill. She says you have to protect both the accused and the accuser. Dr. Brown says she is not supporting rape by any measure, but not every accused man is guilty.
Corroboration can support both the victim or the alleged victim and the alleged accuser. And it was really unclear, forgive my ignorance, so I would like some clarification on that, because oftentimes every case of alleged rape is not always rape. I have had personal friends that picked up a lady on the way and person asked for money. If you don't give me money, I will report you to police for rape. Before you know it, the accuser is in court, name all over the newspaper, because there's no protection in my mind for the alleged accuser. Name all over the newspaper, all over the news, and if that person happens to be innocent or guilty, when the case is over, you're guilty by any means. Doesn't matter. You have that stand.
Coming up on Newsnight, a meteorologist warns Barbadians not to take lightning for granted.
There is a saying, you can find a Bajan anywhere. Are you a Bajan living abroad? Or do you know of one who has migrated to another country? Well, we at Morning Barbados would love to have you or them on our Bajan Afar segment. Share your amazing stories, experiences, and how you have adapted to a new culture. Send us an email to morningbarbados@cbc.vb. And together we will travel the world.
With an increase in the number of lightning and thunderstorms Barbados has been experiencing, senior meteorologist Tia Brown is urging people to pay attention to weather alerts and to be very mindful of that flash of bright light in particular. Our Rachel Agard sat with Ms. Brown at the Barbados Meteorological Services and filed this report.
Since the start of this year's hurricane season, Barbados has been experiencing above normal warm sea surface temperatures, which create a favorable environment for heat and moisture in the atmosphere. Senior Met Officer Tia Brown says this causes hurricanes to form in the Atlantic and results in weakened winds across the island chain, creating more thunderstorms and lightning. Regarding the lightning in particular, she has this warning.
If there's any lightning activity, you don't want to find yourself caught outside in anything as severe as that.
She adds that's part of the reason why the Met Services has been sharing more information more frequently with the public.
We've been doing a lot of video production recently, so we can give you video updates as the situation is occurring. And sometimes you might hear us tell you, well, this shower is expected to pass through in 30 minutes or in 1 hour. So you stay put until that moves through. Otherwise, you find yourself caught out there in a thunderstorm or caught out in flood waters.
As it relates to the unusual heat people have been experiencing, Ms. Brown says the weaker winds also cause localized activity in Barbados, resulting in some parts of the island being extremely hot and humid.
Once you have those light winds, you have the warm temperatures, and the ocean surrounding you are abnormally warm, that creates the right environment to help fuel the showers and the thunderstorms. Now, if you're in Christchurch or St. Philip when this is happening, it's going to be extremely hot for you. You're going to be uncomfortable, while the people in the north, they're just experiencing an excessive amount of flooding.
Ms. Brown says heading into October, the only hurricane on the radar is Leslie, which is currently positioned in the central tropical Atlantic. And she says despite the end of the hurricane season approaching, there can still be significant weather events even beyond the season.
It is the hurricane season, so yes, this activity is a little bit more frequent, but it's something that we have to be more cognizant of even going forward into next year, into the next hurricane season, be aware that it is a possibility, yes, with the waters being that warm, if it continues into next year, that don't forget it when things go back, when we enter the dry season, but just keep it in the back of your head. So, hey, we could be getting severe thunderstorms, we could be getting excess flooding.
Barbadians are also being urged to pay attention to all weather stations and the Department of Emergency Management to be aware of all weather alerts. Rachel Agard, CBC News.
The excess heat in Barbados recently is a new phenomenon which the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, or CDEMA, has called attention to as it points to changing risks. Executive Director Elizabeth Riley wants citizens of the region to be aware of the hazards and keep pace, noting there are many. Ms. Riley was a guest on CBC TV 8's Morning Barbados.
We've always been plagued with extremes with respect to rainfall, whether it is flooding or it's drought, and we are also subject to a number of other hazards in the region as well. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and I know often we don't think of COVID as a hazard, but they're biological hazards as well, not just affecting humans, but also animals. And of course, there are technological hazards like oil spills, etc. So there's always space for paying a lot more attention, for learning more. And as the hazards change, it means we also have to keep pace with the changes that are happening there so that we are able to keep our people safe.
Former president of the Democratic Labour Party, Dr. Ron Yearwood, believes the party has lost its soul. He made the charge recently during an interview with the CBC. When asked if the DLP is still the great party of its founding father, Errol Walton Barrow, this was his response.
The short answer is no. And that is the irony of it all. Persons out there claiming that they're trying to retake the party because they want to stay true to the philosophy of Errol Walton Barrow have done everything to tarnish that philosophy. Errol Walton Barrow Party would never lock out its members. The party of Errol Walton Barrow would not have cut free education in that way. The current party of Errol Walton Barrow would not have cut benefits to families that they need to support them.
And we have more of Dr. Yearwood's candid interview on In the Know with Crystal Hoyt, and that's tonight at 8:03 p.m.
From the beautiful shores of the gem of the Caribbean, Barbados, home of the amazing Harrison's Cave, the tantalizing Oystins Bay Garden, our historic garrison, the indigenous road tennis, and the friendliest people in the world. We are 94.7 FM, the ultimate Bajan experience.
Sports time now. Let's head over to the sports studio where Anne-Marie Burke is standing by with the details. Good evening, Anne-Marie.
Good evening to you, Lisa. And I start with news of football. Barbados is on the verge of promotion to League B in the CONCACAF Nations League ahead of 2 home matches at the turf this month. The Tridents have been hard at work going through their paces for the crucial encounters, starting with the U.S. Virgin Islands tomorrow night. CBC's Anmar Goodrich Boyce has more.
It has been almost 5 years. Exactly 5 games, 450 minutes since Barbados senior men's national football team last won a competitive match here at the Wildy Turf. However, on Wednesday night, they will have the opportunity to change that daunting stat, knowing that victory would mean promotion from League C to League B in the CONCACAF Nations League.
While the Tridents await their first win at home since a 3-0 victory over Cayman Islands in November 2019, Kent Hall's squad is coming off the back of 2 impressive away results, defeating USVI and Bahamas last month in St. Croix. Now the attention has shifted towards 2 matches this month against the same opponents. Speaking during a media training session over the weekend, Hall says the squad is cautiously optimistic.
So right now it's just to be disciplined and honest about what you're doing and make sure that you're applying yourself respectfully to the opponent, because being confident can prove to be a problem if you take things for granted, right? So I think we have genuine belief that we'll win the 2 matches, But as I said, it's just really important to understand that no one's coming to give you points, right? Not international football doesn't play like that. So we got to make sure that we apply ourselves.
Hall also said local fans can anticipate an attractive brand and style of play.
You can expect that when we have the ball, we're gonna definitely be trying to play. We're not trying to just hoof it, but sometimes the game demands certain things, and we want to be adaptable to whatever these situations present. But we're going to try to keep it on the floor, and when we get it on the floor, we're going to try to move it quickly. Combinations should hopefully, look nice and slick, and things that people can enjoy should be easy on the eye. And at the end of it, ultimately, we want to get the ball in the net.
Meanwhile, striker Nauri Stephen says there's a good mood in the camp.
Everything fine for now. Basically, we're working on formation a little bit more, but I think it's coming together. Basically a young group, but got some experience in team, and we helping the young guys, to be honest, and the learning. I think I appreciate that.
Barbados will face USVI at 7 p.m. on Wednesday and Bahamas on October 15th. And more Goodrich Boys, CBC Sports.
Books open your heart, your mind, and your soul. They are educational, entertaining, inspiring, and motivating. Are you an author of a recent book you want to share? Then Morning Barbados will love to feature your book in our The Next Chapter segment. Send us an email to morningbarbados@cbc.bb. That's morning without the G. Come and let us turn those pages together.
Lisa, that's my first look at sports. I'll return later with more.
Thanks, Amri. I'll see you in the second half. But up next on Newsnight is the Business Report.
The facts say Morning Barbados reaches an audience of over 50,000 and Newsnight reaches over 56,000. It's simple. When you advertise, you're getting your message to over 50,000 of your potential customers. Make the call to CBC Sales Department today and watch your business grow. Contact us at 467-5559 or email marketing@cbc.bb.
The desire to help those in need was one of the driving forces behind the establishment of CDL Rentals and Transport Services. Located in Welch's St. Michael, the young company owes its strengths to the teachings of the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. On tonight's Yes Business Report, Trevor Thorpe learns about the business from owner and CEO Letitia Edwards.
The young owner tells the Yes Business Report people need transport for a myriad of reasons, and her company was set up to render such a service.
Many out in the community, there are a lot of patients who can't get from point A to point B, and they miss their appointments. In regards of that, which means their health starts to deteriorate, and which causes admissions to the hospital. So I decided to start the company. Initially, it was supposed to be a wheelchair accessible transportation company. However, the funding for the wheelchair accessible vehicle was not there, so I took my personal car and turned it into a rental vehicle to start the process of getting the funding. So when the car is out, I take the bus to get from point A to point B. In terms of the taxi services, there's a partnership between me and a friend who he has the taxi. So I help him advertise, I help him get jobs, and I get a commission off it as well. So hopefully in the next year, I finally have the vehicle I really want to promote there.
She says the business is to the memory of her mother, and one of her initials make up the name. She adds that the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme and its teachings have been a great help to her.
Yes, I had opened up my eyes in terms of business, in terms of financial, marketing, and networking with other people. It also learned me how to speak to you today, because before I will not be able to get this done. Yes, I will encourage anyone to sign up and be a part of it. It's a great program for young entrepreneurs.
Despite the market being tough, Ms. Edwards says the future looks good. And in an effort to capitalize on any opportunities that may arise, she has completed a course with the Barbados Trust Fund Limited to attract funding for future development.
I was able to gain access to the trust fund course. I completed the 5 days allotted. Currently, I'm just awaiting a call to have an interview with a personnel from there, and I will go in and discuss my future plans, which is assessing a loan where I can purchase the first wheelchair accessible vehicle and start to grow the business from there.
She says the enterprise is a service business and finding them to access their services is not difficult.
CDR Rentals can be found on Instagram under CDR Rentals and Transport Services. We are also found on Facebook, same name, CDR Rentals and Transport Services. You can email us at cdrrentals246@gmail.com, or you can contact me at 845-7201 or 261-1143.
Ms. Edwards is encouraging people to follow their dreams and not to give up. Trevor Thorpe, Business Report.
Small countries in the Caribbean now have an outlet to reach new markets for their goods and services. The revelation came from Director of the Guyana Office for Trade and Investment in the Tri-Trade Center at Pelican Village, Gavin Bovell. Speaking at the introduction of the Savannah milk to the Barbados market, he told a media conference it has been made possible through Grow Invest and the St. Barnabas Accord.
I want to really thank the manufacturers in Guyana, thank the office, the Guyana Office for Investment, which I represent here in Barbados, and the leadership of Dr. Ram Sarup and Mr. John Edgell for putting these manufacturing companies on the map in terms of giving them the support that they need to reach new markets and expand their footprint. And that is the goal of the St. Barnabas Accord, not only to allow small companies to grow and access new markets, but allow more mature companies to expand their reach, not only within the region, but outside of the region as well. And these companies and these products have the capacity to do so.
And that's our look at business tonight. When we come back, Selma Green will join us with the weather. Well, as promised, Selma Green joins us now to take a look back at the weather that we had today and to tell us a little bit more what we can expect tomorrow. Good evening, Selma.
Good evening to you, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. And I certainly will do that. As we anticipated, we got some showers today. Most of the showers, surprisingly, in the area of Oistins. Half an inch of rainfall was recorded there. At the airport, another 2.5 millimeters. And that's because instability continues to affect Barbados and especially the southern portion of the region. The Atlantic Ridge is slowly rebuilding, so pretty soon we'll see dry and stable weather conditions return to our area. And of course, a major hurricane Milton is now moving towards Florida, and that system right now is packing winds of 165 miles per hour. It's moving towards the northeast at about 9 miles per hour, moving pretty slowly at the moment. That system is expected to make landfall by tomorrow afternoon. So back in our neck of the woods, not a lot of rain at the airport. Lots of sunshine, though. The maximum temperature today, 32 degrees Celsius. At 6, the temperature dropped just shy of 28 degrees Celsius. The relative humidity stood at 89% then. And right now we can see how other islands are measuring up compared to us here in Barbados. The temperature holding at 29 degrees Celsius right now are pretty warm from Puerto Rico all the way through to Trinidad and Tobago. And there's one area that stands out, that is St. Lucia. And the temperature there is a little bit cooler than the rest of the region. Pockets of moisture showing up in some areas as well, in particular Puerto Rico as well as St. Lucia. The atmosphere almost 100% saturated, and the winds are still light, but we expect them to pick up over the next couple of days. We go to our satellite picture now. And here is Hurricane Leslie. Hurricane, again, it had weakened yesterday. That system is to the southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands and not expected to affect us here in the Eastern Caribbean. For us, though, that instability will continue, so we'll get some light to moderate showers throughout tonight and into tomorrow, and that ridge should be firmly established by sometime tomorrow. So after that, we're anticipating that we'll get pretty pretty dry and stable weather conditions across the region. We're taking the forecast, and tomorrow is looking to be a lovely day. Sunrise is going to be at 12 minutes to 6, and the sun will set at 17 before 6. Notice that it's getting darker earlier. The first daytime high tide will be at 8 o'clock, the first daytime low just after midday. Seas will be moderate in open water. We're expecting northerly swells peaking at around 2 meters, and of course small craft operators and seabathers, you're asked to be careful, especially along the western coast. The winds tomorrow will come in from the south-southeast to the east at around 30 to 35 kilometers per hour. So that's a good sign that the Atlantic high is re-establishing itself. Tonight we expect an overnight temperature of 23 degrees Celsius. There's a possibility of some light to moderate showers and even some isolated thunderstorms. Over the next 3 days, brilliant sunshine, maybe a few showers thrown in.
Some ask, what makes Barbados so special? We at Morning Barbados say it's you, our exceptional youth. You are talented, resilient, and inspirational. You are the epitome of the Barbadian spirit, testing the boundaries of your creativity. If you are an entrepreneur, artist, baker, designer, author, or have done anything you think should be highlighted, email us at morningbarbados@cbc.bb. Let us show the world our exceptional Bajan youth.
Let's head back over to Amri now for the second half in sports. Amri, what do you have for us?
I'm going to start with some basketball news. My foot game Deacons Thunderbolts and Burger King Clapham Bulls were on either side of winners row in the under-14 and under-16 Barbados Amateur Basketball Association's Summer Jam Basketball Finals. Played at the Willie James, Deacons took the under-14 title while Bulls claimed the under-16s. Let's bounce it off with the under-14 finals where Deacons Thunderbolts in the yellow took command from start to finish over Clapham Bulls with quarter scores of 16-14, 30-22, 45-30 up to this final quarter. And here goes Gabriel Calendar Devonish pulling up outside the arc for a big one to extend that lead. On the other end, the young Bulls had their shining moments as well. Darren Messiah showed he too had what it takes to come up big. Messiah was the Bulls' point man, and watch as he collects the ball, dances through the D before taking it off the board. But Deacons were already in command and was not going to relinquish that lead they built. Jordan Blackman made this play all his. And soon enough, they had put enough space between them and the Bulls to see victory on the horizon. That was Reese Cozier. Deacons turned up the defensive play as well. Cozier this time steals on his backup court to give Blackman the finishing duties on almost the brink of time. And as the final whistle will go, there it is, Deacons Thunderbolts, 53-40 winners over the Bulls to be under 14 champions. The under-16 final will look to you pretty much the same as again it was Deacons and Bulls battling it out, but the tables will turn this time around. Bulls point man Zane Gaskin drains it for a big one. Almost like seeing revenge for their junior team losing out, the under-16s were in business mode. Watch as Darian Griffin fakes the player and then takes it coast to coast, finishing with a sweet one-hand fadeaway. But Deacons was matching it play for play. Walter Yarborough goes for the break, and while not being able to finish, here comes Cozier with the mop-up job. Both teams had the offense and defense in full effect. Both steals, and Griffin's the man to bank it. And just like a final should play, it was even Stevens by the end of the first half. All locked up at 26-all. That's the kind of basketball we love to see. So as you can imagine, the next two quarters brought fireworks. Both teams tussled to be ahead. For Deacons, Jordan Blackman adding a 3 to the cause. Bulls get a crucial turnover. Gaskin, the man with the all-star finishing touch. With a title on the line, the pressure was on. Bulls looking to steal, Deacons regains, and Isaac Griffith comes up big. But Bulls still in charge at the end of the third, up 50-45. And it was about maintaining that edge. Gaskin powers through to take it off the glass. Gaskin on the break again. This time passes to Facundo Tiza, who makes it good. And with the clock ticking down, it was a mad scramble. Deacons trying to get the basket to close the gap, but it just wouldn't be. And how about one last-ditch effort? But all too late and not successful. The under-16 Summer Jam title goes to Bulls, 63-57 over Deacons. Mark this one on your calendar, December 26th at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center. That's the date and venue for a big boxing promotion featuring Barbados' top professional boxer, Cobia Soldier Breedy. CBC's Damien Best has the story.
It took over a year of planning, but the time has finally arrived for Barbados to once again stage a major professional boxing card. On Boxing Night, December 26, 2024, at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center, 32-year-old Breedy, who is based in the USA, will fight for a belt on home turf. Breedy tells CBC Sports it's a dream come true and says it's all thanks to the Ministry of Sports, the National Sports Council, and Matchbox Promotions.
Since I've been here in the US, fighting, building up, coming up the rankings, and finally get a fight on Showtime. PBC and all the big networks over here in U.S. After that, I was envisioning one day me fighting in Barbados, and it was a lot of work to be done to actually get everything together, and it took a year, like at least a year, going on 2 years, for this to come together, and then finally here, and we ready.
Breedy says the card will include his younger brother, Jabali, and other local boxers.
Right now, we looking for an opponent for me, and we have somebody here in the U.S. to come fight me in Barbados. So we just waiting for contracts and everything to be right, and so we can go forward and make history in Barbados. And I can't wait to show you all what I've been working on. We got me as the main event, Cobia Breedy. And you got Keith King as a co-main event. Also have my brother on the card, Jabari Breedy, and you also have Charles Cox and a few other fighters on the card. I don't know all your names, but this is going to be a great event for boxing for Barbados.
As the details for the full card are ironed out, Breedy, who has a professional record of 15 wins and 1 defeat, will continue to train and compete in the USA. He most recently featured in the Team Combat League, fighting for the DC Destroyers. Damien Best, CBC Sports.
And that's it for sports. So back over to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. And we'll be back after this break.
Coming up next on Remembering School.
It's an all-female school, and we women make the world. We make the world go round. And I think that Springer Memorial School have stamped their authority. The girls at Springer Memorial, when they excel really high and well. And we do things with grace and excellence.
Sundays at 5:30 p.m., repeated Mondays at 5:30 p.m.
And that's our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, thank you so much for tuning in. Good night.